consent. I'll just go ahead and start that over. We called to order around 6:08 p.m. We had the presence of our chair, Member David Tate, as well as Secretary Brendan Betts. We did the Pledge of Allegiance. We approved the previous meeting's board minutes via unanimous consent. We did not have an update from our trustee at that time under Township Update, nor did we have an update from our Deputy Chief, Jim Lewis, at that time either. The chair then moved to suspend normal rules. This was seconded by Member David Tate and approved via unanimous consent. Then we entered into our public hearing, as referenced previously by council. We moved into a public hearing to consider the 2022 township budget, which is essentially a readoption of the 2021 township budget as noticed on Thursday, September 16, 2021. A 2022 budget material presentation didn't necessarily come to fruition, but we did have some public comment. Pardon me, I skipped over a line here. Invitation to chair. Okay, so we received clarification from our council as to how to properly go into that meeting. We then went into our budget proposal and had the presentation of the budget. The trustee stated that this closely follows last year without the recommendations of the board for an emergency fire loan, as we do not have consensus. We opened for opportunities for questions and discussions regarding documents and/or answers provided by the trustee. There were very sparse documents provided by the trustee. Member David Tate asked for background and how we came up with the values that she's put forth in the budget. The trustee said that there's not a mathematical equation. The state ultimately estimates revenue, and she allocated it similarly to the year previous. The chair asked for clarification as to whether there was a breakdown for a line item under each fund. The trustee noted that there was no further breakdown other than what we'd been provided. Quote, the documents that you have in front of you are the presentation. Member David Tate noted that we were asking $50,000 more than the estimated levy. The trustee noted that that was indeed intentional, that we asked more, and that the state will come back and say, based on the actual levy revenue, here they will present us with our actual value. In our situation, we do not have enough funds to do all the things we want to do, so we will not want to miss out on any potential funds available to us. She noted that the board can change these numbers, but these numbers have been published to the public. You cannot raise them as they've been published to the public. Asking the maximum levy leaves us, the board, room to do what we need to do. The trustee, noted, I've been asking to receive information from the fire department for months to speak with each board member individually. The budget is exactly the same as last year with the overestimate so that we can receive our maximum levy. Member David Tate asked for the opportunity to review the Form 1. The trustee noted she would be happy to meet with him. And he asked to get further if that was something we could publish, and she noted that we could put it on our website. And then Member Tate also asked or noted that he was interested in looking at the most recent months balances, and she said year to date is posted through June. Member David Tate asked if in October now we would see August. The trustee said that she's had issues with the software, so she doesn't want to make promises. And he asked if she'd be able to give us an estimate of those values. She said she asked more for something in specific, or if he's looking for something in particular, noted that she could help with that. He did note that he did not ask for anything in particular other than the July and August monthly reports. I'd like to see the line item per fund, he noted. Maybe I am making it more difficult than it needs to be, but I want to see the line expenditure per fund. She noted that I don't know that we will have that information before the next meeting. And the chair also noted that this is something that we'd been asking for previously. And she agreed that yes, those are indeed what we've been asking for. She asserts that she is also frustrated and awaiting information from our payroll company, noting that we have a payroll reporting issue and she cannot get into their system. They say it is a problem on our end, so she does not know what else to do. She said the board could have access. The chair astutely noted that we cannot gain unilateral access to all information on Gateway. She says that we can and that she's verified this. Then the Member Tate noted that the trustee is doing what she can. but we would like to see whatever she has up to that date, October 12th. And if you could project ahead where we may stand on these major items, it would be immensely helpful. And it's a problem with the software. Let's pay someone to come in and fix it so that you can do your job. Noting to the trustee. She did say that we have our bank statements and that we, the board, are welcome to come in and review them. The chair noted that he and I both have full-time jobs and are unable to necessarily just go down to the office during her hours, and she said she would make special time for us. So jumping forward, we did have the opportunity then for public comment and communication as well. We received from two different folks via email. Those again are from Thomas Moore and from, of course, Patricia Mason. Thomas Moore asked for the 2022 budgeted full year legal expense, 12/31 through 12/31/21 projected full year legal expense, year to date actual legal expense, assuming through 8/31/2021, 12/31/2020 full year actual legal expense, 12/31/2019 full year actual legal expense. Can you please supply each projected fund balance for 12/31/2021? This would represent the starting fund balance for the 2022 budget. I just want to make sure the emergency loan balance will be zero before the end of 2021. Wabash Township will not have an emergency loan balance at the end at all in the 2022 budget. Does the 2022 budget have any paid firefighting positions in it? How many and at what expense? With inflation significantly rising, at least 5%, how did you incorporate this into your 2022 budget? Can you please provide full projected 2021 expense category account balances and compare them to your 2022 budget? What are the variances and why? Asked for the loan/borrowing debt and type for fire apparatuses, asked for loan borrowing debt creditor name, asked for loan borrowing debt origination date, loan borrowing debt origination original amount, and loan borrowing debt interest rate. In addition, asked for loan borrowing debt contractual payment amount, contractual maturity date, next payment due to date, current or past due, current balance, projected balance as of 12/31/21, and projected balance as of 12/31/22. To Patricia Mason's questions. Question the following, and there are answers to this as well that the trustee provided, and I'm sure she would be willing to put those on the website. But a quick rundown of the questions. She asked in 2020, what was the $63,102 expenditure from the emergency loan fund? Was it a proper expenditure? When are the proceeds for the local funds are received? Pardon me. And then she asked the loan amount. When the proceeds of the loan are received, they are deposited in the fund for which the loan was requested. The 2021 budget order for the DLGF, the loan amount was to be posted by the fire operating fund. However, it was deposited in the emergency loan fund. What was that? All during 2021 expenditures were posted in the loan fund. Next, the loan must be paid back by the end of 2021, and the payment is estimated in the 2021 disbursements of the emergency loan fund. Consequently, the disbursements will exceed the 2021 budget for that fund. How do you explain that? Again, the trustee answered that she followed advice of financial counselor and went into that. The next question, why does the and I go through these questions because they're still relevant as we're considering the budget. Why does the general fund need additional revenue? Why is the levy of $75,000 needed when the end of the year balance in that fund will be almost the total budget requested, $170,000 requested versus cash balance estimated of $169,808? The township is expecting to receive a local income tax distribution of $134,999. The board needs to decide where that money goes. The money in that fund without a levy would be $300,807. Why is a levy needed? The general fund really needs to be explained fully unless there are multiple employees. That level of funding is absurd. She thanked her again for the question. The township needs to make some big decisions regarding long-term sustainable funding. She noted, we have seen that the budget, and she talks about our history of having deficits spent in the township. She knows that we need to have a long-term plan for the fire department, a short-term plan and long-term plan for town assistance, and request available levy from the state to fund these programs. Request all available levy from the state to fund these programs. She knows that her plan for staffing and how to fund these positions have not changed. For the next question, what is the total revenue available to the fire department from all funds? The cash balance for the emergency fund and fire fund and proposed levy and miscellaneous revenues from excise/vehicle taxes amount to $617,700. And that doesn't include the board adopted transfer of $500,000. Limiting the fire department to $230,000 is a crime when the total available is considered. Answer, please see my above answers. And then final questions. In order to fully understand the situation, I need to see the Form 4B for each fund. It exists because it had to be completed prior to advertising the budget. It needs to be shared. I request the current balance in each fund and what expenditures are planned for the rest of the year. And how will the fire department function? No plans are in place, which will explain how the funds for the fire department will be spent, but the board and public need to know. The final answer here regarding your last three questions, please refer to my answers above. I look forward to the meeting between myself and the Fire Association that has been agreed upon to discuss these long-standing issues in our township. It is my understanding that it will take place the 1st of October. At this time, council and I are waiting for the final date from the Association Council. I think we will have a great deal to share after the meeting. The chair moved to close public comment. This was seconded by Member Tate and carried via unanimous consent. We reviewed old business, a review of budget considerations regarding cemeteries. We discussed the frequency of mowing, the mowing contract information, and necessary upgrades and maintenance. Then we discussed our future meetings, which were set for October 12th and October 19th. We are, of course, now meeting on October 26th. We adjourned at around 7:13 in the evening. Those are your minutes. Do I see amendments or edits to those minutes as proposed?
No, there are no amendments.
Seeing none. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I would move for unanimous consent to adopt those.
So given.
All right. So these have been adopted. Moving on to the next agenda item here, which is the township update. Is there an update from the office of trustee? Am I correct in understanding that? All right. Moving on to the next item, this would be an update from the fire department. Is there an update? And Jim will join us over here.
Excuse me. Year to date, we are at 1,019 runs. Year to date last year, at this time, we were at 962 runs. So we're 57 runs up over this period last year. For the year last year, we did 1,217 runs, and we're on pace right now to break that very easily. We had some communication going on with the trustee between her and I. We were having a Zoom meeting on Tuesdays, starting 5 weeks ago, and then for some reason on the third meeting, we didn't connect. And then the next week, we got an email message from her saying that we needed to do a mediation, and there were no more bills to be paid until we agreed to a mediation. So we agreed to a mediation, and right now, her people and our people are in the process of setting up a mediation so we can get together and try and get some of the problems resolved that we have. We have a plan moving forward for a way to fund our paid personnel. I think she has a different plan. I'm not real sure, but when we get to mediation, I think that's what the basis of the mediation is. Not had anything definitely set up yet, but we are working on that. We agreed to it, and it's up to her attorney and our attorney to get that hammered out when we can sit down and talk. And there will be no updates until that happens, I guess. Thank you.
Right. I obviously didn't actually have the trustee speak, but before we jump on to the next item, I wanted to comment or add something from performed by the financial advisor to the township, and that indicated the feasibility of being able to move in the direction of the growth appeal. And we're waiting to see what the final census on this looks like. We'll keep you updated on what that looks like. Other than that, just a continued concern that forms aren't being updated on the gateway, for example. I can't verify. I don't remember exactly how many townships there are in the county, but we're the only ones that don't have like June 30th, June 30th tapped out. So that's been something that's frustrating because that's a big part of the budget process, and the only township, as far as I can tell, there's 9 other townships that have that information up on gateway, but we seem to be the only one that does not. Unless there's an 11th township. We're one of the exceptions. Going on to the next bit here. Ray, do you need to convene a public hearing for the portion of for the portion regarding the budget, or supporting regular order?
So we very much do not need a public hearing. It would just be to the extent that you want to take public comment. This would be your opportunity to do that, but you don't need to suspend rules and call a public hearing.
Okay, thank you. So that will be a divergence from the minutes as established. That wasn't. I believe that I thought that we had to call a public hearing as well for this portion, so I have it on there. But we'll just jump on to agenda item 6 without having to discuss the rules. It was presentation of additional documents. Were there any additional documents to be presented by the trustees? Especially Form 1, so a big one for us to be able to do the line item breakdowns and whatnot.
So I'll jump in here. I don't think that there are any additional documents other than as what was discussed in the minute presentation. On how, I don't know if you saw the note, but it's very difficult to hear you. So I don't know if you could speak louder or move your mask down a little bit when you're talking. It's just very difficult to hear you. Okay.
All right, I'll try to remove my mask.
No, that's so much better. It's like night and day. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Great. Yeah, so I don't think there are any additional documents for consideration today. I think that the offer, obviously that was discussed in the minutes that you guys approved, still stands for people to come in and review the items, and specifically the Form 1 from last year. I don't know if anyone went and did that, but I know that was discussed in the last meeting.
All right.
Oh, now you've got.
All right.
You got a feedback.
Sorry.
There's a feedback loop.
Oh.
Okay. All right.
Well, is this better then?
No, you're kind of in feedback stereo. It's actually somehow worse. Sorry, man.
All right. I don't know what I changed that would have made a difference, but I believe the computer is all powerful, so it's okay. All right. So going back onto that, so obviously, I'll speak as a chair. It's really concerning that we didn't receive basic documentations. Our understanding from speaking with shareholders in our community and other townships across the board is that it's rather unusual and unprecedented for a board to not receive a line item estimate breakdown for the year. I hear that it's last year's budget, but the fact of the matter is that it can't be last year's budget simply based on the discrepancy in fire protection proposed between the two. It's, you know, about $400,000 difference, so it can't be the same budget, and we would have liked to see how it was proposed to be different. In any case, then we'll move on to the next item, unless another board member has something to chime in and say.
Yeah. Angel, can I jump in for just a moment?
Yes.
So one option, because there is some outstanding discussion and outstanding items between the township and the fire association, it is possible to do an additional appropriation after everything's figured out. So the budget can be adopted, and I'm just putting this out there as an option. The budget can be adopted, and then the board can do an additional appropriation as a agreement is reached between the two sides. That is a possibility. I'm just putting that out there for consideration. I know that I think that the items proposed were lower dollar amounts in the fire area, but nothing prevents the board from changing that once an agreement is reached. So I'm just putting that out there.
I appreciate that chiming in, Ray. I'll speak for myself and say that it's would be dereliction of duty to vote for a budget for which we haven't seen line items. I think that any resident of the township or voter that looked at it would say that a board that did so would be incompetent. But moving on to the next part, we have the opportunity for public comment and communications. Is there a public comment? Oh, I see Jim over here raised his hand, so I'll give him the floor.
You can ask a great question. Did she not file a Form 1 this year?
Oh,
For 2022?
Right.
She did not file a Form 1?
The question that Mr. Lewis had was whether Ms. Tysing filed a Form 1 during the budget proposal or not. And that was a question especially for you as the attorney.
I'm sorry, Angel, there is a lot of feedback. I'm not hearing much of anything.
All right, what I was saying was, can you hear me better now?
Slightly.
All right, what I was asking was whether there have been any Form 1 filed with the budget to Gateway, because that was the question that Mr. Lewis had, and I would add to it that my understanding is that it is necessary to be able to do that, to be able to have a budget hearing.
So yeah, I'm not sure that I don't know if a Form 1's been filed or not. I think that the Form 1 though has to be filed along with the Form 4 within I think it's like 3 or 4 business days after the budget is adopted. So it's not something that gets that's required to be put in before the hearing. The only thing that's required is the specific buckets. That is on the Form 3 notice. Because you guys as the board
and just
change,
for
sorry, you guys as the
yes,
board can change
we
those
get to sorry. Yes, correct. We get to change those documents, but those documents have to be entered into the record. And our understanding is that our financial advisor did that this year for the township when we corroborated them. We're just really concerned that we don't seem to get them.
So I think you guys are conflating two different things. So the annual report was done, which divides out everything into those line items. The Form 1 for the 2022 budget, that doesn't need to be entered until after a budget is adopted. And to the extent that a budget is not adopted at the meeting today, then it would just be a continuation of whatever last year's budget was. So as far as procedure for that, I would have to confirm with DLGF, but per statute, last year's budget would just continue. So I don't think that there would be a requirement for a Form 1 if you guys vote down what's been proposed for this year.
All right.
Do you have any other? Do you have any other?
I understand what. Well, yeah. I mean, that just doesn't check with what we checked with DLGF and our financial advisor. Like, these forms have to have been submitted. They just haven't been presented to us.
I'm telling you that there's just that you're conflating two things, and that's okay. I get it. But I don't think there are any forms that have been completed that you do not have.
Actually, counsel, I apologize. I'm looking quickly here through the minutes. She did say that she had submitted values already and that we would have to go through a further process in order to amend or change those values. She did say that in our previous meeting.
That's the Form 3, Brendan. That's just the big bucket. That's not the individual line items. That's what happens after this meeting.
Thank you for that clarification.
Well, and a correction there, we are actually not allowed to go over any of the numbers in particular line items. So those would have had to have been presented as such, because it's not, we don't get to just amend the top line number. We actually have to decide, and we can't go over the appropriations on any of the line items as suggested. So we have the authority to change line items, and none of them can be above the amount in the Form 4B.
So, yes, you can change line items, but they can't go above what was advertised. Well, you can reduce them.
They can't go up. Yes. For us to reduce a line item has to exist, and we have not seen any line items. That's my point.
Yeah, so and I'm sorry to be picky on this, but just to be clear, you can't go over the total appropriation in each of those characters. You can, if you can adjust line items up and down as long as the total stays below whatever the total is. And the line items that were proposed were the line items from last year's budget. So if you look at last year's Form 1, you can adjust those numbers as you see fit, as long as you stay within that total advertised amount for each of those characters. I just wanted the record to be clear on that.
All right, I think that this is a moment where I think there's a disagreement on the authority of the board, but I know Bill had a statement that he wanted to make. So Bill, you're recognized.
I'd like to inform this group that there are some major statements being made that are incorrect. I spent 10 years working for DLGF, and I've done hundreds of budgets. You cannot do a Form 3 in Gateway without putting in numbers in Form 1. You're absolutely correct that you cannot raise the line item budget total, but the Form 1 is absolutely necessary in order to continue in Gateway to generate a Form 3. And a Form 4 has to be completed in Gateway before you generate the Form 4 that you're asking this group to sign. Your information is not correct. If you'd like to call DLGF and ask them those statements, go ahead. But I know the software extremely well, and I wrote part of the budget work that was done. This is not correct. You cannot generate a Form 3 that was presented to this board without completing numbers in a Form 1.
All right. Are there any other comments? I mean, that's our understanding as well, from what we've spoken with the LGF and our financial advisor as well. So that checks out. Are there any other comments or opportunity for public comment?
Yeah, so for public comment, people are supposed to mention where they live, and public comments limited to people that live in the township. So just wanted to make that clear. My understanding is Bill doesn't live in the township, and that's fine. That's fine. But just for purposes of the minutes, that's not really a public comment.
No, Council, I fully understand. I think we've maybe had this discussion before. We had, I was very aware of this before, but I think generally with local government, you kind of let people talk on some level. When things get to this kind of a level, I definitely hear you in terms of pointing that out. But we already had kind of decided that for expertise or informed opinions or other stakeholders, for example, there are folks who work in the township that have come to make comment. We've been open with those and welcome those comments in our meetings historically, especially with this board. There are folks who own businesses in the township as well that have come to make their kind of opinion known. Those, of course, are what we call stakeholders. There are other folks just across the river, and Bill Jones happens to be in Tippecanoe Township, which is covering some of our fire territory. Anecdotally, I've heard this. In addition, though, he's a stakeholder in that, he has to kind of pick up some of that slack, as would, say, Fairfield and some of these other places. Him contributing that experience, I think, is welcome. And I'm confident that this board would have discussions to limit those if and when that becomes necessary.
All right. I appreciate that, and I agree. I think that if we have to like include it in a separate section for the purpose of whatnot, but I think that the information from people with expertise in the subject is welcome at our board at any time. Were there any other public comments that were going to be made? If so, like, you can unmute yourself and speak, and I'll recognize you. I see that Andy Young texted or chatted in the group, but I don't know if he wanted to make a comment or not. So let's give it an opportunity.
No, I'm just happy to have somebody talk that knows what they're talking about. So Bill's input is welcome. I think you guys agree with that. We don't need another lawyer telling us that somebody that knows what they're talking about can't talk. Thanks.
All right. Seeing no other public comment, we'll move on to consideration of and vote on the proposed 2022 budget, which would allow us to, so we'll move on to that part. So we're now considering a vote on the budget as proposed. And as such, we can have debate, and I believe Mr. Tate wants to speak, so he is recognized.
Thank you. In the past minutes in our Zoom meetings, I think it's been recorded that our trustee has agreed to share the monthly reports with us as they are finished, and yet I cannot find anything in either of the websites from June on. I do agree with Mr. Jones. I've looked at the various links of the DLGF, and he's right. We need a Form 1 to get everything else. So evidently there's some miscommunication about that somewhere along the line. At this point, I have no further financial data other than June that would allow me with good conscience to do what the taxpayers asked me to do under oath. All that information is, we would hope to have been filed by the current trustee in her hopes of, as she says, moving forward. It seems as though we're at a standstill. I cannot find any financial records that gives me an idea of how to vote in my good conscience. At this time, what I'd like to move is, due to incomplete financial records maintained by the trustee and what has been provided to the board to date, I move the board seek a consultant familiar with the current software system be given access to the records and provide to the board with an evaluation of the current financial statement to be completed within 14 days. I would say that without current information, there is too much at risk either voting yes or no. We don't have an agreement as to what the statutes say and what Form 1 and Form B are to be provided. We've had no input from the current trustee. I cannot in good conscience vote either way until full disclosure is made.
David, could you please clarify your motion for me, please? I lost it.
I would abstain at this point because we're lacking current financial information.
Okay, but you would like to see a consultant brought in and provided access to our financial records to come in and make an assessment?
That is correct. It'd be somebody be familiar with our current system. And as the trustee has said in our minutes, is that she was having difficulty with the system. And I know for a fact that Mr. Jones was the one that implemented that system. And perhaps he might be the one to be able to give us an unbiased, but practical and informative view on that.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah. And just as chair, trying to keep parliamentary process, what we can do is we can probably hold that motion and consider it after we make a decision on the vote. So we'll bring it up there. But in the process of debate, Mr. Betts, do you have a statement regarding the township budget as proposed?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, folks, what is there to say? This is clearly absurd. I appreciate very much the our council, our collective township council, providing background, helping us understand what is absolutely legally necessary to move from one phase to the next. I also very much so appreciate that we have folks in our community who are willing to and interested in providing us hands-on perspective, what being on the ground and fulfilling the role of the trustee actually looks like and what those different pages are, because he's done them a number of times. I'm really thankful to everyone who's shared their perspective, who's asked really insightful questions. You know, Patricia Mason, previous trustee, as well as Mr. Moore. I appreciated those questions. I think we, the board, have asked similar questions in terms of year-to-date funds, and then also what we expect moving forward. As I read in the minutes previously, Member Tate, asked for projections. You know, can we have some semblance of an idea of what the trustee thinks it would be? Just something of a whiff of some kind of information. And unfortunately, since day one, you know, we haven't had really much of a functioning partner in the executive's office to willingly provide that information, either to us or it would appear the public. As I know, there have been several different email communications requesting information. And unfortunately, I think a lot of that has kind of gone you know, unaddressed from those who should. With that in mind, I certainly cannot in good conscience vote for a budget proposed by this trustee. Not only is there a clear lack of information, but I have a complete lack of trust in terms of her ability to follow through. Even if the perfect budget that I loved and felt was addressing everything we needed were to be presented today with plenty of detail, I don't know that I would trust that that budget would be acted and carried out as such. With that in mind, I don't even have to make that determination. It's not a tough call. I don't know how we can vote a budget by this trustee in this shape through this board and consider ourselves a responsible body in the fiduciary sense at all. Those are my thoughts. I think that we certainly have a lack of information. We have someone disinterested in process. And therefore, I don't think we can support this budget as a township.
All right, appreciate those comments. And prior to moving on to closing debate, I'll make a statement which will touch on the themes similar to what Member Tate and Secretary Betts have said. Essentially, the way that I view this is that my job and my oath is to be able to serve this community and do right by them and to serve the community and their needs and be there and pass a budget that meets the needs of our community. That doesn't mean that there isn't compromise. That's part of working collaboratively. I understand that under normal circumstances, we might not get a perfect budget, but that's okay. We work together through it. We addressed the concerns, and we came onto an agreement of something that was workable. That none of that has happened in this particular process. We tried scheduling meetings and discussing particular items, what the future of the department looks like, what it looks like next year, more presciently and more importantly, and that hasn't really been a serious discussion at all. Similarly, we've barely been able to talk about the other smaller pieces of the puzzle. I think at this point it's kind of become a joke that every time that we talk about what could be, we go back with a laundry list of issues that we hoped that the trustee would be working with us to address. Everything from an insulin pantry to having the availability of food, to what we do to upkeep cemeteries, to what fire protection looks like in the next year, next 5 years, all of that. And item after item after item, none of it has been like even discussed, really. We can't even get through the basic stuff. You know, we're sitting here, and the last report that the board was specifically handed would have been either May or June's. And I can't, the trustee has stated that she has sent June's. I, for the life of me, cannot find any report of June on any of our accounts, on her website. As I said earlier, my understanding is we're the only township in the county that doesn't have the expenditures through June 30th on the website, on Gateway, which is just an embarrassment. I mean, this is just not what good government looks like. And it's how, as a board with fiduciary responsibilities, am I supposed to go through and vote on a budget when I don't know what the line items are, the line item estimate is? Because for all that she said is that it looks like last year's, I trust a lot of people in this community. I trust my other two board members. I wouldn't vote on a budget if one of them were proposing it and telling me, trust me, this is what it says. I need to see it on paper. This is just basic fiduciary responsibilities. And that hasn't happened. And similarly, you know, we're having an argument about whether we need to have it filed or not, when the point is that there's no one in recent memory can remember a budget process where the township trustee did not at least submit the line item estimates, which are required to be able to go through and upload the budget hearing material onto the website. I mean, it's just unfortunate. And it's just not the way that we should be working. So, I mean, it's an embarrassment as a board member to like have to deal with this and to have to sit through a budget process that, I mean, it's an insult to our constituents and to our community, because this is a fire protection of our community, of a big chunk of Wabash Township. And we're sitting here without any paid firefighters, without any plan, without any consideration as to what the growth appeal would look like and how it could impact, you know, upcoming budgets and what we can do in the meantime. This whole process has been embarrassing, honestly. And I mean, yeah, I can't in good conscience vote for this budget. Following through on what member David Tate had previously stated, I'll ask, would it be accurate to understand you would like to present the motion to table the vote on the proposed budget? And then we would vote on like trying to get a financial advisor or whatnot. All right, so there is a motion to vote on tabling the vote on the proposed 2022 budget. Just wanted to double check. Parliamentarily, does there have to be a second on it, or I believe so. So, is there a second on the motion to vote to table? Oh,
Yeah.
Yes, great. Sorry, you recognize.
Yeah. No worries. Yeah, there would need to be a second, but if I believe the calendar, it says November 1st. So if a budget is not adopted by November 1st, it will automatically revert to last year's budget. You know, you can table it, and that's absolutely fine. But I'm just saying from a timing standpoint, you wouldn't be able to get done what you need to before you would be pushed into the automatic last year's budget. So
yeah, I hear what you're saying. Essentially, a vote to table is equivalent to a vote to like reject the budget as proposed.
That's correct.
An effective pocket veto.
Mm-hmm. So seeing that, is there a second to the motion?
So may I ask as well, us bringing in a financial advisor, do we unilaterally make that happen? Is that what's being proposed ultimately?
Would that be, member Tate, would that be what is being proposed? Basically, the board unilaterally bringing a financial advisor to, that's his understanding, correct?
And council, it's my understanding that we have limited powers when it comes to encumbering the township with financial weight. If this advisor were to do so and not encumber the township with financial weight, does that still fall within our bounds of power per your understanding of our power?
I am not sure the board can independently contract with somebody. I would have to research that issue for you.
That sounds to me like we can move forward and assert our authority in this case, as we would perhaps in discussions be open to that service without encumbering the township. My understanding, council, based on previous statements, and I appreciate that you'll have to research, I do appreciate that, is that our power is limited when we move to, say, hire a new lawn mowing service that might preserve, you know, rare species, native species, and if that were to encumber us with funds, that is why we're limited in that capacity. As that is my understanding as well, council, and going off of previous information in different contexts, I would definitely support this and move to table, or pardon me, second the motion to table the budget considerations.
All right. Seeing that there is a second, basically we have a short moment for debate and then a quick vote on whether to table or not. I would just on a point of clarification, well, a point of debate, I guess, would be what would be the other board members' views, whether we would seek to reject the bill and still like reject the budget proposal and still hire a financial person, because that seems like still pertinent, or whether the preferred path forward is to table it and hire a person having the same effect as voting no, essentially. But what's the preferred path in your views and why, I guess?
I think there's just too much missing in order for me to make any kind of value judgment. I don't trust the numbers.
All right.
I think there's too much ambiguity in the numbers. I think some of those might be wrong, and that's why I'm asking that we have somebody knowledgeable in this area that knows the system and has worked with DLGF that can provide us with accurate and honest information, unbiased information. It has nothing to do with a fire district or any of that, but provide us with information that we can then use to provide a smart vote based on what we think the taxpayers need and deserve. Right now, I can't do that.
All right. I respect that. And Member Betts, what's your preference when it comes to that particular bit? Like, is there a reason why we should move to, like, is there a reason to use why we should table it rather than vote it down?
You know, I can't think of a specific reason why one would be better than the other per se, not at all. I think that I appreciate where Member Tate is coming from with the fact that we just don't have the information. I think that makes a lot of sense. In terms of voting down this budget, well, you'll know, Chair, that and I hate to say this, I'm an optimist by nature. I had absolutely no faith that we would be provided any further financial information for months. I've essentially seen this as an exercise in futility, which is highly, highly unfortunate, as we have so many people pouring so much into this. So I've made my peace with voting down this budget. I don't mind tabling it because I do think that signals that we're trying to just get more information. But the attorney's right. This is the pocket veto. I'll be frank. Either path, I'm okay. I think that we do bring somebody in and we try to assert that authority there too. I think that all makes sense. I think we'll be limited in our ability to actually bring someone in, as they'll have to find a way to collect that information from an unwilling source on some level. But I know, but pardon me, others know more about that than I. So at this point, I would say I don't have a strong preference one way or the other. But suffice it to say, I am comforted by the fact that there will not be another budgeted passed by this current trustee.
All right. I appreciate that. Before we move on to actually voting on the motion to table, I would just add that in a bit of a jest, it's trying to get information out of this trustee is like trying to get Steve Bannon to testify before Congress, but that's a whole separate issue. I figure that would get a laugh out of you, Brendan. Anyway, Mr. Secretary, you can call the roll on the motion to table the proposed 2022 budget. Oh, you're muted. It has to happen at least once per meeting. You're still muted.
Sorry about that.
Oh, there we go.
My apologies. Member David Tate, on the motion to table the budget proposal for the coming fiscal year, what is your vote?
Aye.
This motion, that makes sense. Secretary Betts, as the second, I will also vote aye on that motion. Chair Anil Valentine, how do you vote on the motion to table the budget proposal?
I vote in the affirmative.
Okay. So via no opposition, not unanimous consent, but the motion carries unanimously.
All right. So we essentially have moved out of item 8 in the agenda, and we have tabled the vote on the proposed 2022 budget, which, and for all practical purposes, is voting down the budget as proposed.
Unless we were, of course, to get new information, we could open it up still this meeting, I think. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. So unless we were to get new information, which if we were to get new information by the 29th, actually, no, it would have to be because the 30th and the 31st are on a Saturday. The next information would need to come by tomorrow. So if we were to get any information tomorrow, we could still reschedule a meeting at some point in either Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. But beyond that point, the last that we can do that is if we were to propose to announce a meeting by tomorrow at midnight. So I don't think that'll happen, of course. So I see. I would move that we amend the agenda and consider the motion that Member Tate wanted to propose. Is there? Do I have unanimous consent to change that agenda?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Having unanimous consent, Member Tate, if you'd like, you can come over here, and then we can write. And Secretary Betts will write down the motion specifically so that we can create a resolution. Yeah.
Yeah, if he wants to amend what I have currently, because it's just carrying forward that previous motion.
So I will read it. Due to incomplete financial records maintained by the trustee and what has been provided to the board to date, I move the board seek a consultant familiar with the current software system and be given access to the records and provide the board with an evaluation of the current fund status to be completed within 14 days.
Can you go back to the clause preceding fund status and go from me from there? Let me start actually. Familiar with the current system and software will be provided access to our financial records.
So with the current software system, be given access to the records and provide the board with an evaluation of the current fund status to be completed within 14 days. We good?
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
All right, and just for the purpose of this, Secretary Betts. I know that it's basically one whereas clause and one therefore clause. Would you be able to put that on there? And then we can name the resolution and include the number on it. I know that it's a thing in the moment, and I can give you the number for what resolution that would be. Let me pull up the drive to check what our current resolution number is for the. I mean, that's not particularly like changes the dynamic of anything, but I want to be precise on this. Remember what would have been the last meeting where we passed
the financial records maintained by the trustee, and whereas and where
now, I believe my understanding is that this would be resolution 2021-12, given that the last resolution that the board passed was on June 29th, on the morning of, authorizing the board to join pending litigation against Trustee Tyson, and authorizing the board to proceed forward and seek litigation if necessary. And I apologize for being a little bit of a stickler to protocol and making sure that we have a resolution written prior to voting on it.
it's fantastic. Give me just a couple more minutes here. Provided to the board. Right.
And if you send me the text, I can put it in the same format as our prior resolution so that it looks the same. We have let me open it with Google Docs so that I can have the text. Create a copy of it.
David, I have an amended version of your resolution here, and I'd like to seek your approval for its current state. And I'm going to send it to, I'm going to make it such that Anhel can read it as well via Google Docs, if I can slide over there as well simultaneously. And I think I can go over here to.
And are you sending it to my personal or to the township one?
Oh, I guess I could actually just email it to you, to your personal email, actually. Or I'll send it to
Just
Wabash, board at wabashboard.com as well. I'll email the text that I have thus far. And then we can kind of edit it from there. Resolution 2021-12. So far, David, so he's going to get that pulled up. It reads as follows. Whereas the board has received incomplete financial records maintained by the trustee, and whereas the information provided year to date is insufficient. Therefore, and there's the first edit on hold, you'll see it. I move that a consultant familiar with the current software system will be provided access to our financial records and provide the board with an evaluation of the current fund status to be completed within 14 days. Therefore needs to be we resolve or I resolve, I believe so.
Yeah, we resolve.
Following that, rather than I move.
Correct. All right, and you said, have you sent that to me already or not yet?
Yep, that text should be coming to that email, the board at wabashboard.com.
All right, I see it here.
Be it resolved. Be it resolved that.
And I can copy that.
And actually, I suppose if I can, I may not be able to just copy and paste it over to the chat. Oh yeah, I sure can. Folks, I just added it to the chat as well. so folks can see what we're working on.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Another typo, but that's okay.
Sorry, we had a call over here. All right, whereas
Used to be that we just were provided this information like the day before a big vote. Now you just don't get it.
yeah, I can attest that during my first budget process, that was basically what happened. And then trustee didn't show up to the meeting at all, so it was always a fantastic. All right, and today is the 26th day of October. All right. So I'll read you the resolution as we have it, and I'll propose a short, and I'll ask the writer of the resolution, Mr. Tate, whether a change that I want to propose is amenable to him. So the text currently reads, whereas the board has the Wabash Township Board has received incomplete financial records maintained by the trustee, whereas the information provided year to date is insufficient. Now therefore be it resolved by the Wabash Township Advisory Board that a consultant familiar with the current software will be provided access to our financial records and provide the board with an evaluation of the current fund status to be completed within 14 days. I have two small changes that I would like to propose. One of them is with an evaluation of the current status of all funds, to be clear that it's not just one particular fund, but all funds of all township funds. And then the second one is, whereas the information provided year to date is insufficient to carry out the board's fiduciary responsibilities.
For the approval of the 2022 budget.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Fiduciary responsibilities in approving.
Township budget.
All right, and member Tate, I'm going to share the current draft resolution with you so that, and I have to change it to 2022 budget since I wrote 2021 budget, but that was just a typo on my end real quick. All right, you should be receiving that shortly, which has the text as there. All right, and may the record reflect that member Tate, who wrote the resolution, was okay with the proposed changes and it doesn't need to go to vote. All right. Can you see that, Secretary Betts?
I sure can.
All right. If it's, I would move that we close debate. Is there a unanimous consent to close debate on the resolution?
So given.
All right. I would call a vote on resolution 2021-12. And I have to still rename the title of it, but that's the only change that will happen. And that'll be resolution authorizing the board to have a consultant analyze the financial health of the township. All right. I'm now calling a vote on resolution number 2021-12, which it's a resolution authorizing the board to have a consultant analyze the financial health of the township.
Do you want to use analyze or evaluate?
Evaluate, that works fine for me. Evaluate the financial health of the township. All right, so Mr. Secretary, you can call the roll.
All right, on resolution 2112, of course, as constituted, the resolution to have a consultant evaluate the financial health of the township, as proposed by Member David Tate. Member David Tate, how do you vote?
In the affirmative.
Chair Angel Valentin, how do you vote?
I vote in the affirmative.
Secretary Betts will vote in the affirmative as well. The motion, pardon me, the resolution 2021-12 has been adopted by the Wabash Township Board.
All right. And just a point of clarification here, we'll have to discuss who will be that person and have probably a short, either doing it tonight or a short meeting to name somebody. And that could be an emergency meeting to cover that particular specific subject.
I think that I would be of the opinion that we have the perfect person on the call this evening. I think that Bill Jones would be ideal in this case, given that he used to do that for this township in particular, if he's willing to do so. Of course, negotiations don't have to be hashed out this way, but I think that it's fairly clear that our legal standing would divorce us from the ability to pay for services rendered in this particular case. With that in mind, of course, I'm open to other folks who might be able to perform that task. But like I said, I think it's fairly certain that we might have that person on a call this evening.
All right. I would give Bill like the opportunity to have the floor if he'd like to comment on that, and then we can consider whether to have a resolution today outlining who that would be, or whether we want to hold it here in a second and then meet and discuss it specifically. So, Bill, the floor is you.
I would be glad to help Wabash Township, and there will be no charge for my services.
All right, I appreciate that. I would basically resolve, like basically pass a second resolution saying the same thing, or basically saying that we are going to consult with Bill Jones, Tippecanoe Township trustee, based on this resolution that we have passed. So
I would amend that he agrees to consult with our proposal.
Okay. All right. This is testing my
Semantics.
well, not my semantics, my computer ability to like just, yeah, my computer's ability to swift between tabs and change stuff. Whereas the Wabash Township Board has resolved to have a consultant let me grab the text of that other resolution. Evaluate the financial health of the township.
While you compose that, Chair, I do want to say thank you to Bill Jones for providing that insight, and then now offering to provide that service to the township. Obviously, I think that, you know, we have, as townships, as a very tiny unit of government, when we can, we should. And be interested and open to supporting each other. And I know it's something that you've done for many years in the community. So I appreciate you kind of hanging in there with all the ups and downs in this township, and then offering that expertise and that experience. I know that, you know, my neighbors and myself will be the beneficiaries of that. So thank you, Bill.
All right, Brendan, I'm sharing the resolution text with you. And I think that should be here in a second to go through and double check what the format for the last one was, because I might have accidentally changed the font, but that's irrelevant, but I want to make sure that it matches our previous ones.
Okay, I do have it.
All right. All right. And I have since changed it back to the original text.
Did you change any of the verbiage?
Nope.
Okay,
Just
perfect.
the font of the header. All right, so I would read resolution number 2021-13, which states, whereas the Wabash Township Board has resolved to have a consultant evaluate the financial health of the township, whereas Bill Jones, Tippecanoe Township trustee, has agreed to carry out this evaluation free of charge. Now therefore be it resolved by the Wabash Township Advisory Board that Bill Jones will carry out the evaluation authorized in resolution 2021-12. And my only change to what the previous thing was I added periods at the end of those two sentences that I missed earlier.
And I think authorized needs a Z in the version I read.
Oh, I can change it. I just had the British spelling of authorized, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And our country does not like British folks in power, so I can't do that. All right, I would move to vote on resolution number 2021-13.
I'll second the motion to close debate and go to a vote.
All right. Mr. Secretary, you can call the roll.
Perfect. And do we have unanimous consent to close debate, just to be clear?
Yes.
We do.
Perfect. All right. So resolution 2021-13, 2021-13, resolution authorizing Bill Jones to carry out an evaluation of the township's financial health. Member David Tate, how do you vote on resolution 2021-13?
In the affirmative.
Chair Angel Valentin, how do you vote on resolution as proposed 2021-13?
In the affirmative.
My Secretary Betts will also vote in the affirmative on the aforementioned resolution, which does carry with unanimous support from this board.
All right. And we appreciate Bill Jones being willing to provide this service. I don't think I would be shocked to find out that the trustee doesn't want to provide any access. Let us know how we can help and if we have to file anything with any agency to get access to public information. All right. Following this, I would move to close the, sorry, I would move, we would move on to old business. Sorry, I was reading there.
I guess technically our tabled budget might count.
Yeah. So we don't have any old business to discuss right now other than the tabled budget, which we tabled today. And as for future meeting dates for 2021, we have our regularly scheduled meeting on November 16th and December 18th. I think that it would be a good goal to be able to have something to present on November 16th regarding the health of the township and what we have and how much funds we have in each particular category, whether we have any mishaps in the accounting that needs to be fixed, and information as such. Moving on to that, I would move that we adjourn tonight's meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there, I would move that we had to it by unanimous consent. All those in favor?
So given. Aye.
All right. All right. So the meeting is adjourned at 7:36 p.m. I would like to appreciate Member Tate for his contributions on that particular text. And sorry that it took a little bit longer to get those wrestled into Microsoft Word, but we are champions of the Techniverse, as we can imagine. Just being silly. All right, so we'll see you guys on November 16th. Brendan, if you could stay on for a little bit so that we could discuss a little bit of planning for next year. It shouldn't be too long, but I wanted to have an opportunity to just talk about the subjects that we would like to cover in future meetings. So.